Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Nigeria's first elected Vice President, Dr. Ekweme, dies in London at the age of 85. President Muhammadu Buhari and other Nigerian leaders mourn Dr. Ekweme's death, extol the virtues of the departed ex-Vice President. President Buhari asks members of the judiciary to aid the government's fight against corruption by accelerating dispensation of justice. And Zimbabwe's ruling party prepares to begin impeachment proceedings against President Robert Mugabe, accused him of letting his wife usurp constitutional powers. And business news tonight, federal government floats $3 billion dual tranche bond under its $4.5 billion global medium-term notes program.
On sports news tonight, the world mourned as former Wimbledon champion Yana Novotná, who died earlier today after a long battle with cancer.
And from Abuja, absence of judge at Abuja Federal High Court stalls trial of IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu.
Now we have the last public outing of Nigeria's Vice President, Dr. Ekweme, who died in a London hospital last night at the age of 85. The occasion was a graduation of the students of the Rochas Foundation schools, where he was honored with the highest honorary award in Imo State, the Grand Commander of the State of Imo. Dr. Ekweme was also a recipient of the second highest national honor in Nigeria, the Grand Officer of the Order of the Niger. He had slumped at his residence in Enugu before he was flown to a London hospital for treatment last week. As Nigeria's vice president between 1979 and 1983, Dr. Ekweme's famous proposals at the National Constitutional Conference gave birth to the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria for equitable power sharing. Dr. Ekweme mobilized a group of 34 eminent Nigerians who risked their lives to stand up against the dictatorship of General Sani Abacha. He was the founding chairman of the People's Democratic Party and the first chairman of the party's board of trustees. Meanwhile, when Channels Television visited his residence in Enugu, the place was devoid of any activity, and the situation was the same at his family house in his hometown in Orumba North local government area of Anambra State. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari says the former Vice President's Council on National Issues and Mediation for Peaceful Coexistence would be missed as he mourns the death of the elder statesman. A statement from the President's spokesperson, Femi Adesina, quotes the President saying, Dr. Ekweme's unwavering commitment to the unity of Nigeria had been a major encouragement to many governments, recalling the personal sacrifices he made in helping to lay the foundation for sustainable democracy. President Buhari believes Dr. Ekweme worked very hard to improve the lives of the less privileged through the Alex Ekweme Foundation. Meanwhile, the Igbo socio-political and cultural organization, the Ohaneze Ndibo, described the former vice president as an outstanding patriot. The President General of the group, John Nwodo, says Nigeria has lost one of the foremost advocates of a restructured federation, whose contributions to the country's socio-political evolution will not be forgotten.
Dr. Alex Ekweme is outstandingly brilliant. He is intellectually engaging. He is forthright and courageous about his convictions. And he's very patriotic and very loyal. When he agrees with you, he's with you all the way through. Nigeria has lost an important person. If you look at the political landscape of Nigeria, Ekweme can never be forgotten. When the military did not want a return to political activity, Ekweme was one of the few people who got up and formed a political movement that engaged a number of active politicians and pressured the military for a return to civil rule.
Now, more condolence messages are still pouring in honor of the elder statesman. A former president of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar's condolence message on his Twitter handle reflects on the official relationship with Dr. Ekweme, and he says, Dr. Alex and I were part of the 1995 Constitutional Conference, which recommended that Nigeria be restructured along 6 geopolitical zones. We will miss his focused guidance. The Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, also shares his experience with the late Vice President, saying, quote, I remember Dr. Alex Ekweme for his exemplary courage in the face of the overwhelming odd when he stood up to the past military regimes, and his dexterity in his personal pursuit as a successful architect, lawyer, businessman and philanthropist. The Southeast Governors Forum describes the death of Dr. Ekweme as a great loss not only to Igbo land but to the nation. And the River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, on his part, says the late former Vice President Alex Ekweme was an outstanding Democrat, compassionate leader, true patriot and exemplary statesman. Dr. Alex Ekweme would be missed by all lovers of democracy and development, end of quote. Also, the newly elected governor of Anambra State, Mr. Willie Obiano, is yet to come to terms with the reality of Dr. Ekweme's death. He says, quote, a great Iroko has fallen. Nigeria has lost a statesman, Ndibo have lost an illustrious son, Anambra has lost a father, but I have lost both a father and a friend. I've lost a mentor, and this is a big loss on all fronts, end of quote. The man, Alex Ekweme, means different things to different people. After his tenure as Nigeria's vice president, he's always shown interest in the country's development. Our next report captures the life and times of Dr. Alex Ekweme.
Dr. Alex Ekweme was Nigeria's first elected vice president. He was born on October the 21st, 1932 in Agwata local government area of Anambra State. Dr. Alex Ekweme attended the University of Washington in the United States of America, where he earned a bachelor's degree in architecture and city planning. As vice president between 1979 and 1983, Dr. Ekweme's famous proposals at the National Constitutional Conference gave birth to the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. Dr. Ekweme mobilized a group of 34 eminent Nigerians who risked their lives to stand up against the dictatorship of General Sani Abacha.
Through trials and tribulations, and through all the vicissitudes of life, because it's not always pleasure, you have pain, you have joy, you have sorrow. But with the grace of God, one will be able to withstand the ups and downs of life.
He was the founding chairman of the People's Democratic Party and the first chairman of the party's board of trustees.
Put your hands together for Dr. Alex Ekweme.
Dr. Ekweme was a recipient of the second highest national honor in Nigeria, and his last public outing was on September the 30th during the graduation ceremony of the Watchers Foundation Schools, where he was honored with the highest honorary award in Imo State, the Grand Commander of the state of Imo.
And we're going to accord them the rest.
2 other stories now. The president has challenged the nation's judiciary to effectively implement the initiative of the Chief Justice of Nigeria to speed up trials of corruption and financial crimes. President Muhammadu Buhari highlighted the judiciary's need to act now whilst declaring open the biannual All Judges Conference taking place at the National Judicial Institute in Abuja. The conference for Superior Court judges is part of the Institute's continuing education for legal minds to reflect and strategize on employing global best practices in the dispensation of justice. The president acknowledges that there are significant challenges facing the Nigerian judiciary and will continue to provide the necessary support towards a vibrant legal system. Our correspondent Ibrahim Adra reports.
There is barely enough room for these esteemed Superior Court judges from across the country. The occasion is a 4-day conference, a period of stock-taking and reflection, which aims to come out with strategies to better manage Nigeria's judicial system. The National Judicial Institute has conducted diverse and impactful training of judicial officers, but plans to expand.
We are determined to expand our horizon like never before, and recent expansion in the scope of activities as epitomized by the recent collaborations with various government organizations, is indeed proof that the Institute is determined to improve upon capacity building for judges.
Participants are focusing on the conference theme, strengthening judicial integrity and rule of law. And of course, this gathering also hopes to discuss the huge challenges facing the judiciary.
For speedy dispensation of justice, increment of budgetary allocation to the judiciary, regular capacity building programs for judges, training of professional court administrators, financial independence for state judiciaries and security for judges.
It is time for the president to declare the conference open, but not before raising concerns of his own.
There are contradictory decisions of superior courts on the same subject matter in cases where facts are substantially the same without a clear attempt in subsequent cases to distinguish the earlier cases.
The president clarifies that the anti-graft war is not targeted at any particular group.
Let me again assure the judicial community this action taken by executive was in no way a prelude to usurping the powers of the National Judicial Council or aimed at intimidating the judiciary as wrongly portrayed in some sections of the media.
Delay in court cases is a huge problem leading to extreme prison congestion in Nigeria, among other problematic issues staring the sector in the eyes. The kind of effective reform required to reposition the judiciary involves not only immense resources, but also time. Finding these two and more is a challenge for stakeholders to overcome. In Abuja, Ibrahim Adra, Channels Television News.
The United States has announced $45.5 million in additional aid to support stabilization and early recovery efforts to help those affected by the violence in the Northeast. The promise was made today by the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, John Sullivan, at the U.S.-Nigeria Binational Commission holding in Abuja. Mr. Sullivan said while the United States remains committed to helping Nigeria fight Boko Haram insurgents, Nigeria's leaders must work together to create an environment that will encourage peace and development. According to him, the United States will continue to partner with Nigeria to harness the power of agriculture to boost the economy and provide more opportunities. Mr. Sullivan also said the United States will continue to work closely with Nigeria on repatriation of stolen assets and will be co-hosting the Global Forum on Asset Recovery in December.
The United States Deputy Secretary of State, Mr. John Sullivan, leads a high delegation of the American government to the 2017 U.S.-Nigeria binational meeting in Abuja. Flanked by the Minister of Trade and Investment and the Minister of Information and Culture, the Minister of Foreign Affairs lists security, economic development and the fight against corruption as key areas of interest that the Nigerian government seeks stronger collaboration with the American people.
It's clearly evident that in spite of the change in leadership on both sides, our foreign policy objectives to promote stronger ties between our two countries is firmly on course. And as we prepare to discuss strengthening these relations in three key areas of focus for our BNC, namely security cooperation, economic growth and development, as well as governance and democracy, we should also be guided by the forward-looking approach of our two presidents to our bilateral relations.
The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State reiterates the commitment of the American government to support Nigeria in rebuilding the Northeast.
We're encouraged by Nigeria's recent steps to establish a Northeast Development Commission, which could enable many of those displaced by conflict to restart their lives. The United States wants to continue to partner with you in this critical phase. Today, I'm proud to announce that the United States, through our colleagues at USAID, will contribute an additional $45.5 million to support stabilization and early recovery efforts to help those who have been affected by violence in the Northeast to rebuild their lives.
He also reaffirms the commitment of the United States to help repatriate stolen assets.
We'll also continue to work closely with the government of Nigeria on repatriating stolen assets to the people of Nigeria. And we're pleased to co-host the Global Forum on Asset Recovery in December in Washington.
A high point of the meeting is the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding, a document that the Minister of Foreign Affairs describes as what will enable both countries to track the implementation of all the areas of collaboration agreed upon between the United States of America and the Nigerian government.
In part two, after the break, federal government demands explanations from Italian authorities over the sudden burial of 26 Nigerian girls found dead on a Spanish warship in the Mediterranean. Do join us again.